Welcome, fellow dirtbags and deplorables and patriots. Dr. Moss here, Richard Moss. Thank you. I think it is time for us to have truth in advertising about the Democrat Party and stop referring to it as the Democrat Party. There's no connection at all with this Democrat Party and the party of Franklin Roosevelt or of Truman or of Kennedy, and I would say even of Bill Clinton, as bad as he was, and then Barack Obama, as terrible as he was. I'd say this current Democrat Party is a Marxist party. And it's important to know that the Communist Party, USA, in the last election, 2020, did not run a candidate. They endorsed Biden. They were comfortable with this Democrat Party. So all of the policies and positions of that Democrat Party, this Democrat Party, the 2020 Biden presidency, they were okay with it. The Communist Party USA was fine with their positions and their policies, and so they didn't run a candidate. In effect, the Democrat Party today is the Communist Party USA. So in order to have a proper understanding of what's going on around you, the incredible destruction and the anti-Americanism and the tribalization, the cultural Marxism, this woke bullcrap, this diversity, inclusion, equity, social justice bullcrap. That's all one thing. It's called Marxism. Cultural Marxism, whatever Marxism you want to call it. Woke is Marx. Woke means you hate America. It means you hate white people. You want to tribalize the country. You want to turn this into a third world banana republic nation and enslave everyone, have a tiny little vanguard, a tiny little elite that runs the country, enriches themselves, as all communist regimes do, and then to kill their enemies. Then they kill their friends, and then they enrich themselves beyond all measure. The richest people in the world are communists. Never forget that communists love money more than capitalists. There's no comparison. They just don't want anyone else to have it. They want to enslave you. That is the history of Marxism. That is the nature of Marxism. It is an evil ideology, and we will not in any way compliment it by giving it the phrase philosophy. No, it's not a philosophy. It is an evil ideology that subjugates the individual, that operates under the assumption that there is no soul, that the individual has no soul. There's no such thing as God. There's no such thing as divinity or being made in the image of God, as Jews and Christians believe, as this nation is founded on, this nation of endowed by their Creator with God-given inalienable rights. No, 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 no. That is not the Marxist way. They are absolutely scientistic, materialist. You are a meat puppet. That's all you are. You have no soul. And they break everything down into raw, pure impulses and appetites and materialism. And so there's no room for a soul. There's no room for somebody that has a dream or has ambition or has a new idea. There's no room for any of that. You are just part of the broad gray paste of a Marxist socialist society. And they mean to convert our nation into a paste. Nothing that shows. Nobody that can raise its head. That's Marxism, my friend. And that is today's Democrat Party. My recommendation going forward is for the Republicans, and by the way, the Republican Party is a useless party. It is the controlled opposition. We should refer to them as Democrats, and I guess the Democrats as communists. However, we should break it down. But, you know, if there's any Republicans that is worth anything, and certainly if I had been elected, I would stop calling them the Democrat Party. This is not the Democrat Party, as I said, of Obama even or Clinton, let alone some great Democrat presidents that we had, like Kennedy and Truman. And I would not look upon Roosevelt as a great president. He was quite destructive, but I always give him credit. I think he was a patriot. He was just a socialist and a fascist. And he had a great admiration for the fascists of the day, including Mussolini. And I think the back door, although eventually he waged war against both of them, and we praise him for that, for finally recognizing the threat, and again prosecuting World War II and bringing it, and along with Harry Truman, to its conclusion when we defeated the Axis powers in 3.5 years, dropped 2 atomic bombs on Tojo's Japan, a fascist state. And yes, I give the Democrats a lot of credit, and I've said many times that I would call myself a Truman Kennedy Democrat, because those two would have no chance in today's Democrat Party. But anyway, going forward, my recommendation for any Republicans that are interested in such things, and most of them are not, they are just utterly pathetic, true cowards. Again, the controlled opposition. They're there to make it look like we have two parties, competing ideas, but they're more or less Democrats. But for the one or two out there that are any good, stop calling them Democrats. Call them what they are. They are the Communist Party USA. Okay. Now, you know, one of the big things going on, so we're going to shift in a way, but not really, because I want you to know that the Marxists in America, the CPUSA, in other words, the Democrat Party, they have alighted on a model that I think they really like. And so all of the elites in America, big tech and Hollywood and the corporate world and the media and all of our colleges and universities, let's just refer to them as the elites. The elites of America have decided that they actually like the Chinese model. They like it so much that they want to make it our model. Important to remember that in 2001, when we allowed China to enter the WTO, that's the World Trade Organization, the idea was that we would expose them to the wonders of liberalism and democracy and free enterprise and liberty. You know, all the things that America is founded on, private property, the rule of law, all of these things that are part of a healthy, liberty-minded nation like the United States once was. They had the idea that by exposing communist China to the blessings of liberty, they would eventually liberalize. But my friends, actually the opposite happened. They didn't liberalize, rather we became more like them. So, and now what I'm saying is that the elites of America, all the elites, I just ran through the long list that you're all, I'm sure, quite familiar with, they have decided to align themselves with China. Hollywood loves China. Now, again, and professional sports, you know, our professional leagues, like the NBA and Major League Baseball and the NFL. I guess hockey hasn't joined in. Maybe they will, but so far they haven't. I guess that's sort of dominated by whites. I don't know. It doesn't work there because it's like cold, it's ice, and anyway, that I don't know that blacks have gotten into that sport too much. But all the other sports, they're totally woke. We all know that, and no one should watch them. You should not watch them. You should not go to their games. You should not watch them on television. You should not go with any of the products that they promote. All the real wokesters like LeBron James and Colin Pimperneck and who I don't know, Oprah. She's not an athlete, obviously, but another real wokester. But always remember that the wokesters, all those super rich billionaire blacks that dominate certain sports like LeBron and Colin Pimpleneck, and Oprah, not an athlete, but dominates media, multi-billionaires. And for that matter, the victim in chief, Barack Hussein Obama, and his beloved wife, lovely Michelle, they always live in the whitest of neighborhoods. Don't ask me why, my friends. Martha's Vineyard and, Tony neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. and Malibu and Brentwood and Beverly Hills. All the great neighborhoods. They're all lily white. I mean, there's not a black to be found other than them. So they really, I've never seen them buy a house in or live in South Chicago or Harlem in New York City or Camden or Newark, New Jersey. No. It's just the Tony lily whitest neighborhoods, like 99%. It's so white, it's almost transparent. Those are your wokesters there that are always lecturing America about how bad we are, how racist we are in America. But they love the Red Chinese. Now, the Red Chinese have destroyed Tibetan Buddhists. They've destroyed beautiful, Tibet, Lhasa and all the great, beautiful Tibetan Buddhist culture. They've destroyed it. They've moved in all the Han Chinese. They've dominated now. They've destroyed thousands of historic, beautiful Buddhist temples. But, Hollywood, that's okay. It doesn't matter. They have Uyghurs. These are, they're Muslim minority in, what is it called, Sichuan. That corner that is sort of next to Turkmenistan there, Sichuan, or whatever the name is. They have them in concentration camps. They harvest their organs. The Falun Gong, they use them for, they brutalize them and they harvest their organs. They basically run a slave empire, the Red Chinese. They've taken over Hong Kong. Try to imagine Hong Kong. I've been to Hong Kong. What a beautiful city, that came from the British and had all the freedoms of a former British colony. And there was supposed to be the two systems, but they and the world said nothing. They invaded. They took it over. Such a disgrace. So Hong Kong is now one system, part of the Chinese slave empire. They no longer have freedom of speech, all the things that they had, that they were supposed to have for 50 years, starting from 1997, when they were given Hong Kong back because it was the end of the treaty, and they promised the two systems that they would have their freedom, and Hong Kong was such a beautiful, prosperous city. Well, that's gone, and now the Red Chinese, because of what a wonderful job that China Joe did in Afghanistan, they see a man that is obviously in some stage of dementia, obviously incredibly weak, but beyond that, he's bought and paid for. His whole cabinet is bought and paid for by the Red Chinese, by the Chinese Communist Party. And so, they're making eyes at Taiwan, and I would anticipate they're going to attempt to invade Taiwan as well. So this is the Red Chinese, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. But while all of those wokesters that I mentioned, Major League Sports and professional sports and the leagues, Hollywood, the academia, they're always condemning, always happy to criticize and talk down about America. But they love China. They're down with China. They are committed to China. With all the abuses in that slave communist empire, they're down for that. So, we always mention that if it wasn't for double standards, the left would have no standards at all. But I want you to know that one of the most dangerous things going on now is what, again, we call elite capture, or you can say elite merger. The merging of the elites here in America and in other Western nations and communist China. They're into Red China. They appreciate that model. They embrace it. They want to bring it here. So rather than China becoming more like us, we became more like them. And this is a great danger, because all of these giant corporations, big tech and all of our giant corporations, we thought of them as American companies. They made their money. They produced their new ideas and innovations and technology because of the freedoms that we enjoy in America. The private property rights, the protections that they enjoy in America. And of course, big tech has special protections in that they cannot be sued for defamation and liability. That's that Section 230, which we really need to get rid of, so that they can be liable for lawsuits, since they are curating content. They are acting as publishers, not as platforms. They need to be regulated, to me, like phone companies, and that we should use them. They have the public airways and should become more or less like phone companies and utilities, so that we have our freedom of speech again, but otherwise at least eliminate the Section 230 protections. But the main point is that we have seen the merging of our elites, our American corporations and other American institutions like the media, like Hollywood, like our universities, with the CCP. This is very dangerous. They have no gratitude to America. This is where they made their fortune. This is where they enjoyed the protections and the rule of law and private property rights. This is a great threat, and the answer to this is that we need to pass laws that, in my opinion, we should stop doing business with China. We should cut off access to our capital markets to China. We should send home every single Chinese student in America. They are all spies. You can't come to America unless in some way you are bought and paid for by China. Their families are back home. If they step out of line, they threaten their families. Those kids in our schools are spying or learning our techniques. Whatever it is, we should not give them our best technology. We should not teach them what they're learning in our universities. It's the same idea that during the Cold War, try to imagine, would any of us have thought that it would be okay to have 100 or 200,000 students from Russia, from the USSR, in America, in our universities? It would be an act of insanity. We would never do it. And here we are every year, roughly 350,000 Chinese students. Send every one of them back home. That has a second advantage. It would bankrupt our Marxist, corrupt universities, and I'm all about that. Let them go under and plow them with salt for the destruction that they have perpetrated on our land, the brainwashing and indoctrination of our young people, so that we've got nothing but young Marxists everywhere you look, and entering the workforce, leaving our universities, and it goes below that, even into our colleges, and who knows, pre-K as well. So We should send the students home. No more business. No more stealing of our technology, which they do every year. Estimates of $400 billion of stolen technology every year. And our industries should not be allowed to, they should be prevented from going to do business in China. Because when you do business in China, you don't do business in China without doing business with the CCP. You belong to the Chinese Communist Party. And I want everyone to understand that the CCP is the world's greatest transnational criminal operation. They make the mafia look like nursemaids. They are in a whole other class. They are Leninist Marxists. They are totalitarian in nature, and they need to be opposed. We need a Cold War, a new Cold War in America. No businesses. Now, we'll give them incentives to come back to America, to bring back our jobs to America, to bring back our industries and supply chains to America, to the midsection of this country that has been hollowed out. Bring them back. Give them incentives to come back. Cut their corporate taxes. Now, I know our commies, the CPUSA / Democrat Party wants to raise it. You know, on the other hand, I don't mind that. But if they're going to come back to America, then I'd say give them tax breaks, cut back on regulations, but in no way allow them to come. What does that say? 15 minutes left? All right. What do I have? In no way allow them to do business in China and send these students back to China as well. And by the way, I don't mind bankrupting our universities, because that's exactly what would happen. Maybe they would cut their prices down. They are outlandish in their prices. All right, my friends, so beware of the elite merging of our elites and the CCP, and what we need to do to combat it. America first. Make America great. Bring back our supply chains to America. Bring back our industries to America, and bring our jobs back to America. Okay, that's fine. And I just got the word I'm speaking too loudly. Apology. Okay. Now I'm going to switch gears, my friends, and I want to talk about vaccine tyranny. My friends, it's important to understand. You've all heard about the Biden bio-fascist tyranny that, all of a sudden, I guess he's a dictator. You don't have to pass statutes anymore. Everything's executive orders. I mean, how about Congress? Are they supposed to pass a law and then you sign it into law? Isn't that our system of law? That you have two houses of Congress. One passes a law, the other passes the law. They reconcile. They send it to the president. He signs it into law. That's called normal legislation. But I guess now it's all executive orders. So he I guess signed another executive order, obviously immoral, obviously illegal, and obviously unconstitutional. But he's saying, he's got the vaccine mandate for our military, and I guess you can make an argument that the military is part of the executive branch. I think it's terrible. I don't know what soldiers and servicemen that feel strongly about it, how they would get out of it, but I suppose that he does have jurisdiction over our servicemen, our military. That is part of the executive branch, and so maybe there's no way out for them. That's too bad. Then you have the contractors that do business with our military, the contractors, and maybe there too they would have no way out, perhaps, if they want to do business. And again, it's part of the executive branch. Maybe they would have to undergo this forced vaccine mandate. But as far as the rest, where he said 100 employees or more, these are not part of the federal government. They are not those that are federal contractors with the federal government. They're private sector. And there's about 80 million of them, the so-called unvaccinated. He's the bio-fascist Biden and his CPUSA Democrat Party is looking to impose biofascism and make those companies 100 employees or greater, and the roughly 80 million private sector workers, they are forced to to be vaccinated. Apart from the fact that it's terrible medicine, it's anti-science, which I'll get to in a minute, but it's illegal. It's unconstitutional. It's immoral. He doesn't have that authority. They're not part of the executive branch. They are private sector. So apart from, and then they're doing it through the Department of Labor and OSHA. Now, OSHA can clean up, infected waters or companies that are not meeting OSHA standards. They're dirty. That's, they're polluting in some way. They're polluting the land, the waters, the air. This is all obviously under OSHA. There's no discussion, of course. That's not the same thing as this ridiculous argument that people that are not vaccinated are spreading. No. You can't force somebody to inject a medicine into. That's not part of OSHA, my friends. Yes, cleaning up spills, cleaning up land and waters and the air, no question that would fall under the Department of Labor and OSHA and environmental standards, the EPA. But no, that doesn't translate into your having the right to force people to inject an experimental, emergency authorized medicine that has a lot of potential complications and side effects into somebody's arm. No, you don't have that authority. This is not a fascist state, and this should be resisted. And by the way, while I'm remembering it, we are going to have a Don't Tread on Me freedom rally. We will not comply. We oppose no to vaccine mandates. No to vaccine mandates. We're going to have that rally. We're looking into it. We'll let you know soon. Downtown Jasper on the square. A freedom rally. No to vaccine mandates. Okay? This is an emergency authorized experimental, not vaccine, but gene therapy. And really, to me, something that has had no long-term studies. We don't know what the long-term side effects. And remember, that mRNA vaccine is incorporated into your DNA. And, to me, it's quite experimental and dangerous. But anyway, the fascist, the bio-fascist Biden, he's losing his patience. Ooh, wow. China Joe is losing his patience. China Joe, pass a law. Both houses of Congress and sign it. You don't have that executive authority. The Department of Labor and OSHA doesn't have that authority to force people to inject an experimental vaccine into their arms, emergency authorized. All right. But let me mention just briefly that it's bad medicine too. It's bad science. A lot of people are familiar with the Israel study where, and Israel, and I got to say, Israel is really disappointing me. I mean, you might as well call Israel Pfizer nation. I mean, that's ground zero for vaccinations. They have done a lot of study. More than 90% of Israel, of their population, has been vaccinated. So that's your go-to country. And guess what? Almost 90% of those who are reinfected, almost 90% of those who are sick enough that they have to be hospitalized, guess what, my friends? They've all been vaccinated. Well, you would guess that because 90% of the country has been vaccinated. So, it stands to reason that just about 90% of the people coming in were vaccinated. So what does that tell you, my friends? It tells you the vaccine doesn't work. And this is last year's vaccine. It's called the Delta variant, and I'm going to call it the India variant. And India, by the way, they had their spike. They got through it. Everyone was on ivermectin. Their spike went up and it went down. Boom. In a few weeks, they were through it. And only 3% of the country is vaccinated. That's a third world country. It's a poor country. Most of the world doesn't get vaccinated. They don't have the money like, we have, and they don't have our printing presses because we're the reserve currency. And so, we can print money. People have no idea how much we get away with because we are the world's reserve currency. The Bretton Woods Agreement, a great mistake in 1944 that the US dollar became the reserve currency. So we're printing money left and right. Nobody can do that. And then we went off the gold standard under Nixon, a big mistake, 1971. So, it's all just paper money, by the way. It's just monopoly money. But in any event, right now, I guess people are still accepting it. But so we can buy all these vaccines, $5 trillion that we've spent in deficit spending on COVID. But the rest of the world, they're not vaccinated. And they use ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. They get their spike. I mean, you can't avoid that. The virus comes through, the new variants come through, and there'll be new variants. My friends, just so you know, COVID is with us. It's like the flu. It's going to be with us forever. Every year, and maybe more frequently than that, maybe every few months, we're going to have a new spike, a new mutant strain. Live with it. We have to live with it. The treatment, the policy, what is following the science is not to keep using the old vaccine that doesn't work. It's a new virus. It doesn't work for this new variant. It's like you're using last year's flu vaccine for this year's flu. COVID was last year's virus. This year it's the India variant, the Delta variant, and there's going to be the Epsilon and the next one and the next one. It's coming. Every couple of months, the virus mutates very quickly and then it gets out. You can't use last year's vaccine, just like you can't use last year's flu vaccine. I mean, try to imagine how ridiculous that would be to offer that. Say, hey, we're going to use last year's vaccine. It's an absurdity, my friends. But yet that's what the medical establishment, the failed, dysfunctional medical establishment, and I mean all of the hospitals, including my local hospital, which has disgraced itself, and the medical staff has disgraced itself. And all of the medical boards that threaten doctors because they try to treat patients that are sick with something more than to be intubated and to be on a ventilator and give them a little oxygen. What about steroids? What about budesonide? What about vitamin D3? What about Zithromax and zinc and ivermectin and fibrophenate and famotidine, Pepsid? That more and more we're finding these new repurposed medicines that are effective. Why not treat that? Why not try something instead of nothing and treat them early? It's always been a fundamental principle of medicine. The earlier you treat, the better, whether it's cancer or it's an infection or whatever it might be, an autoimmune disease, of course you try to treat it as soon as you can, out the window, by our failed, dysfunctional medical establishment, from the local to the state and at the national level, the NIH and the Ayatollah Fauci. What a disgrace. How many times he's reversed himself on masks and so many other things. The director, how many decades has he been there? I mean, come on. Has he seen a patient in the last 40 years, like a real live patient? Has he treated a real live patient? My friends, if you've been in government for 40 years, the guy is there since the 80s. I mean, no empirical experience, no real live experience, no real treatment with and experience with actual patients. And we've got people that are out there in the front lines who are very well credentialed and have published. They're double and triple boarded, some of them, and they are in the front lines treating patients, and they're coming up with solutions and reversing patients with COVID, that and with the emphasis on early treatment, so they don't have to be hospitalized. And so anyway, the point, my friends, is that vaccinate the at-risk populations and let everyone else who is healthy and at relatively low risk, it's better for them to get the virus and have the sniffles, have a bad cold, very low risk, especially the young people under 18. It's like zero risk. And then they have natural immunity, which the studies in Israel show are 20 times more effective and more robust and more durable, more long-lasting. Ayatollah Fauci, why don't you get on the phone and call up Israel? They do, though that's a nation of Jews. They're probably, pretty smart. Get on the phone. Call up Hadassah University or Tel Aviv University or Technion. Call them up. Call up their researchers. See what's going on in Israel, my friends. Again, vaccinate the at-risk and then treat the rest and let everyone get herd immunity, have natural immunity, 20 times more effective than these useless vaccines already that lose their efficacy within a few months. What good is that? Another booster with last year's vaccine. How stupid can you get, China Joe and the CDC and the Ayatollah Fauci? You little bio CCP fascists. You disgrace yourselves. You cover yourselves with shame. All right, my friends. That's about it. I'm going to talk about, there's a Jewish holiday coming up. We're switching gears here, by the way, my friends. By the way, Robert Malone, big on everything I just say. I've learned a lot from Robert Malone. Robert Navarro, I think, have put together, I think, a book or a study detailing all of this. Robert Malone, he's only the guy that invented the mRNA platform upon which the current vaccine is based. You think he might have something to say about this? And then other players out there that we have talked about before, Ryan Cole and McCulloch and the FLCCC, I think it's called, the Frontline COVID Care, COVID Critical Care, and many others. They're just out there. But Robert Malone is well known, and others as well. And I'm even thinking about myself getting into treating COVID, but I have to study it a little bit more before I offer that. But every doctor, every primary care doctor should be treating COVID, not by offering them to be hospitalized and intubated and put on a ventilator. No, you want to do it earlier, and you want to treat it with ivermectin. And you state legislatures in red states, you should pass laws telling the pharmacies that they should be giving this out to the doctors that prescribe it, that they're not doctors. This is between the physicians and patient. They're not physicians. It's doctors treating patients and ordering famotidine, Pepsid, phenylfibrate, and zinc, and Zithromax, and HCQ, and so forth. All right, that's it, my friends. So let me switch gears. We'll speak a little bit about the Day of Atonement coming up. So I mentioned last time about Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and that we have the 10 days of repentance, and it culminates in Yom Kippur, our Day of Atonement. These are known as the days of repentance, or the penitential days, in which we engage in tzedakah, teshuvah, and tefillah, which means charity and prayer and study, which are sort of the same in Judaism. The words are the same, and so prayer and study are sort of the same thing in Judaism. That's interesting, and I like that. And then, what I say, tzedakah is charity, tefillah, and teshuvah. Teshuvah is returning to the faith. And on Yom Kippur, we blow the shofar, and we we hearken to that call, the ram's horn. And, it's very biblical. You remember all the stories of the blowing of the shofar, the ram's horn, and Joshua, brought the walls of Jericho down with the blowing of the shofar, and many other great things that we remember from the Bible that have to do with the blowing of the shofar. Well, on Yom Kippur, as on Rosh Hashanah, we also blow the shofar. We begin our fast, 24-hour fast from sunset to sunset, a total fast that begins at sunset today, and that begins our Day of Atonement. In Judaism, it's the sunset, sort of the night before, and then it ends on the next sunset, and that's how we do it in Judaism. We do it by the setting of the sun, the beginning and the end of a holiday, or of Sabbath, or of Yom Kippur, all the same, sunset to sunset. And anyway, we fast, and it's a total fast, no liquids. I fast a lot, just as a matter of health, but I drink water. I do that once every couple of months, kind of a cleansing thing, dietary cleansing and all that. But this is different. When you don't drink water, you really do feel that. You start feeling that by 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock, and it does weaken you. You really need to drink. But anyway, we don't drink. We afflict ourselves, as it says in the Bible, and that means to not eat or drink anything. And we say powerful prayers, and we're asking for God to let us into the doors, to keep the doors open, to let us in, to open up the doors, that we may be written in the book, written in the book of life for a good year. And we're asking for forgiveness. We are praying the whole day. We afflict ourselves by not eating or drinking. And then finally, when the sun sets, we say the final prayers, which are called Ne'ilah, beautiful prayers that we recite. We ask that God forgives us and allows us in to be written in the book of life for a good year. We then we blow the shofar, and then we end Yom Kippur, and at that time we break the fast. And it's sort of joyous. We have the wine and the hamotzi, the bread, and what else? The wine, the bread. What else we do? Wine, bread, and is that it? And the candles. All right, we light the candles. Yeah. So the big three. But anyway, we break the fast, and it's joyous celebration. So anyway, we are beginning our fast tonight, and I will fast as my children will, and all my children, the four children, Ariel, Noah, Adina, and Isaiah, who I often say are more famous than I am. My beloved children, God bless them, and they will fast as well. And well, anyway, so for my Jewish friends, we say, have a good fast and a good break the fast. And my friends, I think I'll just mention my website, richardmossmd.com. richardmossmd.com. I'll mention it's a good site, a lot of good things there, pictures and articles and so forth. We're updating it. And then my two books. My first, Matilda's Triumph, about my beloved mother, who was a single mom and raised the five boys before the age of the single mom. She and my mother divorced, and my father died when he was young. So my mother raised us as a single mom and worked, never went on welfare, and set an example for us. Anyway, some good stories. And then the other book is A Surgeon's Odyssey, about my journey as a surgeon, a volunteer surgeon in Thailand, Nepal, India, and Bangladesh, doing head and neck cancer surgery. A lot of good stories there, interesting. So you're welcome to check out those books. I think you will enjoy them. My friends, we will see you. You're going to hit that little button. My daughter Adina is helping me here. She's going to go maybe into video and film and editing and all that. So this was her opportunity to learn and help her dad at the same time. My friends, we will see you next Wednesday, 3 p.m., maybe at a freedom rally downtown Jasper. We will not comply. No to vaccine mandates. And by the way, terrible science, anti-science, China Joe, dementia Joe, bio-fascist Joe. You don't have that power. See you next week, my friends. Thank you very much.